Welcome everybody. My name is Aga, and today on the show we have a very special guest, Franco Varriano. Franco is the person behind the impressive growth of Startup Place and Acelia, and his particular expertise is in gaining initial traction for a product and building its early community of users. And I'm very excited to have you on board, Franco.
Thanks for having me.
And just to get you started, if you could tell us a bit more about your own personal entrepreneurial journey, how did it all get started?
Sure. Actually, I started building businesses when I was 11 and recruiting friends to help me with the odd jobs and stuff like that. And I always had an interest in entrepreneurship, but when I went to university, I started studying engineering. And then I decided to switch to political science and specifically like development and economics. Really, I was very interested in how to build new societies and economies. So things like China or the European Union. For a while, I ended up working for some NGOs. I worked for the federal government in an archives web service team to develop digital products based on analog information that we were digitizing and trying to make available to the population and businesses. After that, I even went abroad and lived and worked in Turkey for 6 months on some NGO products. But all along that time, I had started to notice that my interests were shifting towards smaller groups and even individuals were making things happen a little bit faster than what was going on at that scale. And really interested in how they were taking their passions, monetizing it, creating jobs, and doing something cool and providing value back to the world. So that's pretty much how I got started and a bit about my background.
Wow. So what brought you to the work you're doing at the moment?
So I mean, as I started to shift back towards, people building products, creating values, I realized that I love to meet new people. I love to solve smaller problems, create values. Definitely, I think a lot of entrepreneurs who start will definitely be able to realize that there's a certain rush of energy associated to, building a new business and having somebody come up to you and say, hey man, I really love what you're doing. It brings, it's a feeling unlike any other, I think.
Wow, that's cool. So how did it happen that you started Startup Place? Was that your first venture? I mean, like the bigger project, or did you have a few others in between?
So there's always a few others. I mean, I think you have to fail a whole bunch in order to, become a little bit more successful. I started Startup Place with a team of people here in Ottawa about 2 years ago, and we just kind of grew it from there. And then we realized that it was kind of beyond Startup Place and that there's a bigger opportunity to help even more people, not just in the tech scene. And that's how Excelio kind of was born as more of a bigger platform to do more of the cool stuff that Startup Place was already doing, but bring it to other industries, other markets, and help a whole bunch more people.
Wow. So when you started the Startup Place, was it, you guys knew that it's going to be a business, or you were kind of playing around with it, just like a not-for-profit model of helping other startups?
So it definitely started as a business. The idea is to provide value as well. I mean, so there's different types. We really wanted to create, there's lots of content on the internet. We really wanted to create high quality content that would just blow people away. And I mean, you do that in two different ways. One, we definitely had the Smart Guide as a product. And then, you set up a blog and start blogging, have interviews with people. And so there's all kinds of different ways to provide really high quality value. Not always, that you have to charge for it, but, we were investing lots of time. Definitely when we first started, it took a couple of weeks to produce a really high quality guide, because we were playing around with the model. We were trying to understand, different technologies, building different things. And then of course we didn't write any of the content. It was always working with, a successful entrepreneur, for Startup Place. And so we had to kind of fit into their schedule as well. And so that takes a lot of time too.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to become profitable?
So within the first 10 months, we sold $100,000 worth of guides.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think we probably had our first sale within the first couple of days, probably and for the site and the product before we even had a product. And I'll kind of get to that a little bit later, unless you want me to jump into it right now.
We'll get onto it in a second. Just
Okay.
a few more questions on your background, because that's really interesting, especially knowing like where you're coming from and what drives you towards entrepreneurship. But as you were saying, there's always lots of challenges along the way. What was, one of the biggest challenges you guys faced in terms of developing the company?
So for myself, I mean, I had always personally been involved in a whole bunch of different projects. 2 years ago, I didn't really know how to code. I still don't really consider myself a really gifted coder, but I'm much better at it than I was when I first started out. And I mean, when you're starting out by yourself and you don't know how to do certain things, you definitely have to play to your strengths. You have to rely on other people, sometimes a little more than you would want. With Startup Play specifically, I mean, we just went through lots of different iterations. I think lots of startups nowadays will probably do the same thing. You're always constantly trying to figure stuff out. And it's easy to get discouraged when you're throwing a lot of work out the window because something just didn't fit right or it didn't make sense at the end of the day. You really have to kind of get used to waking up, trying something new every day, and knowing that it's probably not going to work at the end of the day. And that takes a certain, mental capacity. But if you're prepared for it, it makes it a lot easier.
Right. So, in terms of the skills you're having now, and you obviously learn how to build a community and gain this initial traction. Did you just learn on the go?
So I mean, you always pull different aspects from your background, from past experiences and stuff like that. But we were tech entrepreneurs, so we started very specifically with a niche that we were very comfortable with, that we were very familiar with, and that we had worked in before. And that really makes scaling and making sales, which are the two biggest components of a successful business, that much easier. It really helps when you know what people are looking for, make them love the product a little bit more, how to show them something that they're going to love, and how to keep them coming back using it, because those will drive sales and help you scale and grow. Unfortunately right now you can't take love to the bank, so you gotta make sure that you start small, really know your market, and build something that people are going to love.
Would you say that that's the basically a difference between the companies who can gain traction very, very quickly and those who are struggling with it? Knowing this in this community and being part of the community.
Yeah, definitely. I plan to touch on that a little bit later on in some of the more specific questions. But definitely, if you are a founder that has come from an industry or background that you're very familiar with, you already understand the landscape and the environment so much better than somebody who just randomly dreams up an idea and says, all right, I'm going to go make it happen, because those kind of entrepreneurs need to learn as much as they can, as fast as they can, and probably don't have the same benefits in terms of connections, credibility, and just knowledge that somebody who's in the scene will really understand. Right.
That's really useful. Okay, so obviously you had an idea, you had you did some iterations, yeah, and you started selling that. Guys, how did it happen that you got sales so quickly and you grew so quickly? 10 months is very, very little time to have such an impressive growth and sales behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of experimentation, lots of errors and lots of errors. Solid mentorship that helped. But really what we had done is started to build an audience before we had the product. And I think that's becoming even more critical these days. It really depends too on the niche and on the industry. You shouldn't go around selling vaporware too much, but a lot of the way that we built it was through experimenting with content on our blog, figuring out what made a certain type of content high quality compared to others. What were certain subjects specifically where information was really, really lacking that tech entrepreneurs would be blown away if they paid $50 or $60 for a smart guide. They would just love and be able to apply and get crazy results. The other thing that we focused on with Startup Play specifically, less now on Excelio as it's a bigger platform, but on Startup Play specifically, because we were shooting for really high quality content, we were also shooting for high quality serial entrepreneurs that really knew their craft very well, had started and successfully achieved very specific milestones with their startups. And so we weren't trying to make it up on the go in that sense. We were really going to the top people and asking them for their process. And it's really interesting that to be able to speak with someone and really understand how to do something very specifically, and then be able to kind of create a whole process or project plan around that.
Right. So basically, you went to these entrepreneurs and you asked them to create the guides on the specific topics. Yeah. So you would
Yep.
basically be a distribution platform for them. Yeah.
So we are a distribution platform for them, but we would hand pick them for sure initially, and that really helped solidify with our users and the people who were visiting that they knew that we were building high quality product, and it wasn't just something that you could Google search for and you could find a hit. It was really something that was unique and very insightful.
Right. You mentioned that you guys basically started testing the product before you even had a product. How did it look like? If you can give us a bit more details.
At first it was basically just a checklist. We built a real quick web app, and there was all kinds of bugs with the user interface. Some people didn't realize that you could click the tasks and it would drop down and more stuff was there. But it was very, very basic, and where we put the focus was really on the high quality content, and that kind of helped take people through probably less than desirable experience at first because they knew that they were there for the content. When you go to university, you have a certain expectation that my class is going to feel and look like this, and I'm here for these reasons. When you go to a conference, it's the same thing. And so we positioned our product, very clearly in people's mind that this is what you're going to get, this is how it's going to work. And then, that would kind of take them through the basic checklist app, even though it didn't look that great at the time and looks much, much better now.
Right. So did you have did you have a content at that time, or did you just, did you test the product? The whole model of basically that you put up a landing page even though you don't have a product or, even a service or a prototype, and you still can test if people like it or not. Is that something you guys did?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's pretty critical. I'm going to speak about it a little bit before, but I think there's definitely a few steps that you need to do before you put up a landing page. But once you're ready for a landing page, definitely, put that up, whether you're building any kind of app or hardware or service, but you need to have kind of a presence that is on the internet, that's digital, that you can drive lots more people to, because, just humanly possible, if you're just trying to talk to people, it's never going to happen. You're never going to reach that many people. So having a landing page with a condensed message of the value that you're going to deliver, not necessarily, the product, because that's going to change. It'll change very quickly and over time, but the value, the idea, the vision, and obviously the solution and what problem it will solve is very important to have on the page. And then after that, definitely content marketing, solid content to back that up, to keep people coming back so that they say, oh yeah, I've heard about that before. Yeah, I've been there before, or some other people were talking about this. Maybe I should check it out. And so that, will definitely build up an early community of early engagers, of people who are interested in what you're doing, who will follow along and who will check back and share your content.
Right. In terms of the landing page, would you recommend just collecting emails, or would you recommend, any of the viral, sharing mechanisms and, getting people to, tweet something about your, share on Facebook?
So it really depends on your product or service and the way that you're planning on monetizing. If you have an app that's going to be free and you really just want to get as many users as possible, then you want to make sure that they're driving downloads. And so whether that's tweeting to drive, awareness, if you have a waiting list to say, hey, join me here. Does anybody have an invite? Lots of apps do that. That should be your approach. We took the approach of collecting email addresses because, we specifically wanted to know, how many people were hitting the page and how many of them were converting, and then also be able to do some email marketing. That's, how we grew so quickly and made some sales initially, was by letting people know that, hey, we had launched a new product and it was available here. And because you're on the mailing list, you get a discount, you get all these bonuses and stuff like that. But the important thing is don't have people do too many things on a landing page or even a website of any kind. If you're asking them to submit their email, to tweet, to do, X, Y, Z, share it with 10 other people, they don't know who you are. They don't know what you're doing, especially at those stages. So, make it very clear and don't expect that people will let you into their network just because you have a nice, fuzzy image of some cool people in the background and some, nice, crazy text. They really need to know, first of all, what value you provide, what the service look like, and are they going to like it? And then they're willing to start sharing with your friends. So, you can't just expect a page to go viral instantly. You have to earn trust, build trust. It's not something that you can ask for. It's something that's given.
Right. One question I would have would be, you have one landing page, but obviously you have different target groups, within your niche. So how how basically do you customize? Do you have different landing pages for different target groups, or would you just focus on, just driving everybody to one landing page? How to go about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you're starting out, the important thing is to narrow down your niche as small as possible so that you only have one type of landing page. Now, it's important to try and split test different elements on that page, but, we were very focused on tech startups, and we knew that we were very specifically focused on first-time founders or second-time founders, and even more critical of the people who hadn't applied or even considered going through an accelerator, and because those are the people who are looking for advice. And at first we also thought that they wouldn't be centered in big cities. Or in downtown New York, we found that first-time entrepreneurs would come to the site more often, and so those are the people that we really targeted. And so as a startup, you're a small team, you already have lots of things to do. Don't start going and creating 20 different landing pages. Because that's a lot of stuff to maintain. I think it's kind of a rookie mistake. You'll learn that over time. Rather, you should have one page and really focus on making that the best page possible with minor elements, changes from time to time, just to kind of see how the message resonates with some of those visitors. But narrow down that niche, eliminate half the work, figure it out there first, and then you can get bigger from there.
Right. Would you advise anything in terms of narrowing your niche? How do you know that's this is the niche to go after?
So if you're familiar with the environment, you'll kind of have an idea of that already based on your past experiences. If you're kind of stumbling your way into it, it's going to take you a little bit more time to figure it all out. But it's important to kind of get out of the building and talk to people. I'm a huge proponent of what I call social growth hacking, which kind of fits together a few different concepts that a lot of the time I think we think is siloed, and nobody has really explicitly said, hey, these things are interconnected. Social growth hacking is really based on minimum viable product that people are willing to pay for, product market fit, and being able to really talk to people and get some solid metrics out of that. And so, if you're doing those three things out of the building, talking to people a lot, you're gonna better understand the market niche and how to approach building that page.
Right. Wow, that's really useful. I totally agree that you should, get out of the building. There's so many people who just, put up the landing page and kind of wait for people to come in. While I also feel like lots of entrepreneurs just miss out on this, just the local context and actually talking to real people. And there's not much, of like people say, okay, go out and talk and test your product, but actually that's a very important part of growing your company, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if you want me to touch on that now or further down, but I think even before you put up a landing page, what you have to be focused on is that to be successful and, having the right mindset for driving growth is that you want authentic growth. You don't want just random emails or random people. You actually don't look at big numbers because those numbers will eventually lie to you, or human error will get in the way and you're down the wrong path. Data is only useful for helping you validate what other individuals and experiments and context-specific conversations have shown, and then you use the data to validate whether that was correct or not, whether it's working or not, and whether it's aligning with a certain direction that you thought you had. That's the only thing metrics are useful for. And so before you even get into really building some crazy technology or a crazy landing page, again, you want to kind of come back to the social growth hacking concept with the three pillars again. So product market fit, does it solve a real pain? People miss it, it's gone. Are they willing to pay you for it? Another good indicator is, are people trying to solve the problem themselves already? I mean, so Dropbox really had product market fit pretty much right out the gate because there was a solution, but people recognized the problem already. They were trying to, email files to themselves to try and save the latest version that way. Some people would, some more technical people would set up their own home servers. But even, anybody, students, moms, anybody were trying to solve the problem before Dropbox already came along. So they had the product fit right out the gate. The second thing, again, of the main concept is minimum viable product. So And so that's what you want to test. That's what you want to come up with in these conversations before you even start programming. You need to figure out what this MVP is. And then finally, the third concept again is a 1,000 true fans, validating that at least 1,000 people are really going to love this and want this. Now, I'm not saying that you should try to talk to those 1,000 people along, but if you start with 100, or you even put up a page, talk to 100 people or 50 people, most cities there's at least that many people that you can talk to at a meetup or anything, that are in your target audience. It might be outside the tech startup space, but go on Meetup, go on Facebook, even city community calendars. Just figure out where these people are, where they're meeting up. If they're hanging out in coffee shops, if they're at like town halls, go out, talk to them a whole bunch. Take as many notes or record them or anything. But you should try to track as much stuff as they tell you, all related to building your MVP, the product market fit, and acquiring 1,000 true fans. And 1,000 true fans isn't just a random number. There's a really old blog post, I can send you the link after for everybody who's watching, that specifically says that you can get 1,000 true fans, you should be able to support yourself. And your product has a great base of followings, community, people who are willing to buy from you, who will share your product for you. And that's really what will take you to the next step, where you're ready for more, quote unquote, traditional growth hacking. The social growth hacking is really about getting out into the world, talking to people, understanding the problems very, very well so that you can build a solid foundation and then you can accelerate really quickly. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really, really cool. So, when you're talking about, getting out there and talking to people, would you recommend any specific questions to ask, like, something, if there's a person who needs to, who wants to go out there and talk to their users, what would be like the three most important things they would have to understand from their potential customers?
So I guess, again, it really depends on the products, and your market niche. I mean, people who really understand their niche will understand what questions to ask specifically, but I think, it really comes down to, would you pay for this? Would you use this, more than once a day, if applicable, more than once a month? Like, would you come back? And three, would you recommend it to somebody? If they're willing to pay you, if they're willing to use it, and if they're willing to recommend it, I think you've got something that's, is pretty solid.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for that. That's cool. Okay, so that's from what you're saying, I understand that the social growth hacking is kind of like a first part of, basically, which is going to lead to the like bigger outreach or the proper growth hacking strategies. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. So the idea is to drive the 1,000 true fans and basically collect emails or talk to these people and to understand the product. Cool. Yeah. So that's the offline world. Do you connect it with online world somehow, or you just going out and talking to people, or would you do something online as well?
So you do absolutely. Sorry, yeah. So you do absolutely have to connect it to the online world. That's what will provide more scale. Like I said, you won't be able to reach 1,000 people probably without driving yourself crazy, offline. But you really need to have that base developed from the offline world before you go online. Otherwise, your message isn't consistent. You don't really understand the value. You don't really understand the need. You don't really understand the target audience. And then you're going to spend a bunch of time and money trying to figure that all out online, which is much harder than if you just actually sat down and have a conversation with somebody. I think it's a bit of a lost art. Especially with our generation, we're used to everything being online. We text instead of call. So I think younger entrepreneurs are kind of caught thinking that, everything will magically happen online. If I can reach, a bunch of people, it'll just sort itself out. It's actually, the wrong approach. Start by figuring out whether 50 or 100 people really like it. And then use that message, use their words, use whatever they told you to put up a splash page and then start reaching out. And then you also have a base of people who are very connected with you, right? You've talked to 100 people. You say, okay, well, can you share with at least 5 people? And be very specific. And don't be afraid to ask people either. The more specific you can be when you ask somebody for something, the easier it is for them to do it, especially if you already have everything done for them. So if you say, listen, thanks a lot for helping me. We figured it out. I've got a splash page up. The message is consistent. It reflects and resonates with you. Here is a little message, an email, and send it out to 10 people, 10 of your favorite people, or 10 of your favorite closest friends, and use this message. You don't even have to write anything, just send it. And usually at that point, because you've shared your vision, you shared your ideas, they're very invested, and you've provided them everything they need to do. It doesn't really take that much time out of their day anymore. They're more willing to do that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing you basically do is to reach out to your friends. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not necessarily friends because they're going to lie to you. They're going to tell you what they think what you want to hear. But your target audience, core people that you can trust that would again buy your product, use it, and recommend it to other people. You need to look at those people and ask them for their insight. Social growth hacking is actually something that I think that we've all been used to doing at one point or another. And so I like to tell this analogy that when you first went to high school, it was like the biggest, craziest place you've ever seen. So many people, you're trying to fit in. And so you are actually socially growth hacking yourself. You are going to start, changing certain things. You're going to start liking certain things. You're going to start trying a whole bunch of trends. You're going to jump on a couple fads. You're going to try to fit in with different groups, like the skater kids or the cool kids or the sport kids, because you're trying to carve out an identity for yourself. But the interesting thing about that is it's all happening in the real world. And then by the time you grow up, you have a better understanding of who you are, what makes you an individual. And I mean, a startup has to go through the same thing. But unfortunately, we all try to skip right ahead to the end of like, this is what the product is. But we haven't actually built a social following that's going to help us support it and help us grow it. And so you got to go back to the high school mindset. How do I fit in? How do I make this product? Try a bunch of different things, talk to a bunch of different people, and make it fit in with a specific niche. Then I can worry about, becoming, president or whatever the next step is.
Yeah. What's your opinion on getting people to, pay for the product which doesn't exist? I mean, to click a buy button or, putting up landing pages where actually, you get people to buy things.
So that again really depends on the context of the product. I think that a lot of, successful hardware startups or some software startups actually starting to do that with and without Kickstarter, and I think that's great. As long as you can make sure that your messaging is very clear. I mean, you don't want to sell somebody something, say, hey, put your credit card down, and then they don't know when they're getting it. Be very clear with them. As soon as you're taking an email or personal information like a credit card, you are very responsible to those people the same way that you would be responsible to investors. And that's really important to understand. I mean, the internet's full of scum marketing. Don't add to it. You can take pre-orders for a product as long as like I said, you're very specific about, when it's going to be delivered, what it's going to be like, what the process is like. And then, make sure that you're very engaged with those people, have specific channels of communication open with them to let them know, what's going on. I think Kickstarter does a great job of that. And leveraging the people who come onto the platform to make projects to show them the way of, hey, you should post an update within the first 3 days of how the project is going. You should send emails at specific times. Here are the best times to send. So they provide you all that stuff. So you need to kind of figure that out for yourself if you're going to go without that kind of platform. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of projects out there that were self-funded that did pre-orders with tons of different tools or platforms. Some of them even built their own. Specifically, I don't know if you heard of the Lockatron last year. It was like a new door lock that you could install very easily on your front door. You can unlock the door with your cell phone. And they built their own, Kickstarter funding platform for pre-orders, using Stripe and stuff like that. And then they open sourced the code, so I can actually share that with you later. I think it's an awesome project. And basically they did it because they knew that they had spent all this time researching and getting really engaged with their 1,000 true fans, whether they hit that number or not. They felt like they had a solid foundation, a working product that basically, if they started taking pre-orders now, they would have enough money to kickstart production, ship it out to those people, and then use the channels they put in place to kind of create a real company. And they did that, very successfully with some press and some of the pre-order money. So don't be afraid of taking pre-orders, but make sure that you're very clear on what's going to be delivered when and have those open channels of communication.
Right. So coming back to our process of social growth hacking, so we talked about getting the 1,000 true fans. So is that would you say that would be the email address you want to collect, or would that be amount of people you talk, or what's the metric behind it? We can say, okay, I have 1,000 true fans now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll send you the link to the article. So it's really important to read that post because I think it's pretty solid. You could attach a metric to it. You could say that these are email addresses, and at this point, I feel convenient. The idea is that once you have 1,000 true fans, and the article, the post defines true fans as somebody who's willing to buy anything and everything you produce, who's, willing to recommend it to somebody. And I think they even attach, like, they're going to spend a minimum $100 or $150 a year on your product. So that's kind of like what a true fan is. And so I'm not saying you should wait until you have 1,000 customers who really, really love you to launch. But what you should do is make sure that you're building a community of 1,000, at least 1,000 people. That's like the minimum threshold. And just treat these people like VIP rock stars. And so whether that's through an email list, Twitter list, through building a conference and attracting these many like-minded people to share your vision, whatever you need to do to get in touch with or attract at least 1,000 people is what you need to do. And so the social growth hacking part is just to make sure that you actually get out of the building, like Eric Ries and Steve Blank will say, it's to validate the product need. A lot of startups, like I said, because it's so much easier because we're not used to real world conversations, we just, put up a splash page, share it on Twitter and Facebook or whatever a couple times, spam all these different places with the messaging, and you think that, hey, people are just going to love it. Well, that's not right. I mean, you could get lucky. It could work the first time. But it's best if you really understand what that target audience wants. And then again, it really depends on your objectives. If you want to do email marketing, you definitely need email address. If you need to send them something, you definitely need the email address. But again, there's a lot of trust there. You're asking somebody to give you their email address, so you need to provide them a very specific reason why, and show them that you are responsible and deserving of that information. And don't just treat it like a number, like I said earlier. Like, metrics are just there to help guide your ideas and make sure that you're on track. You're dealing with real people, and I think if you take that honest and open approach, that it'll resonate with more people. They're going to see that you're not treating them like some random customer or a number, that you're actually interested in solving a problem, creating a cool product, and they're going to trust you even more, and then be willing to share.
Wow, that makes it so much easier, because suddenly, it's not like you have, I have a product or a landing page, and then how on earth do I drive users to it? It's like just building community from the day one of, even if you don't have a product.
And the other cool thing is that if you're building that community, typically they'll probably also follow you around from project to project. I mean, things will always change. You're going to send out emails like, hey, this didn't work, but now we're doing this. Let us know if you're still interested in doing that. And usually people, if you have, built even a small relationship with them, they're going to understand who you are. You're not just some random website or some random voice. You're a person. And then they will follow and help share your message. It's basically, building early evangelists for what you're doing.
Wow. So basically you're kind of building an early evangelist, like, for your brand or your person, or you build this personal trust with them.
At the same time. Sure.
Wow, that's cool. So we have this, early community basically from our social growth hacking out there. We have, we've done some email outreach to our friends and asked them to share and communicate the vision. How do you scale that up now? So how do you take it to the next
this is
level?
the online part. Yeah. Okay. So definitely, that's the next part, where you would put up a splash page, start sharing stuff very quickly, try to get your first product or show some promise of progress with the community, and at that point, hopefully you're generating sales, or if you're not, you have a working app. Try to release updates as often as possible, just to keep everybody's trust in the product going, so they can see, ask feedback all the time. Again, be very specific. Don't just send out an email to everyone and expect everyone to write back, because they won't. Be very specific in who you send specific messages to, specific in your asks, specific in, hey, you don't want to give them the answer, but you want to say, hey, listen, can you take a look at this very particular area, and let me know what you think. In our case, we're building a multi-sided marketplace. So there was a demand side, and then there was a supply side. The supply sides were with the entrepreneurs, the authors who were creating the content, and the demand side was with users. And so we were consistently asking both sides very specific questions tailored to them. We wouldn't just send out a giant email to everyone saying, if you're expecting to read the whole thing, saying if you're an author, read this part, if you're a user, read this part. No. We have to separate that. And you have to be very specific, and then really understand what were the different challenges, what were the different likes, and that way you can keep evolving. And so as you keep growing, depending on your product, again, you're going to start doing all kinds of different channel testing. You're going to find out whether ad buys work for you. If you have a little bit of income, you're going to find out whether social sharing really works. You're going to find out if email marketing is the way to go. You might test just seeding everywhere. You might have to, take on some VC money to do some crazy marketing. So it really depends at that point. But once you have the solid foundation down, a website up, your first product's launched, people kind of checking things out a whole bunch, then you're ready to start, going to the next step and really trying some of those channels.
Right, and would you recommend any of this strategy? So basically, what you're trying to say is that we should, there's a whole bunch of tactics or strategies, you can potentially use. So basically, the idea is to test them out, what works with your audience, yeah?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and at different times. So again, I don't think this first step of like getting out of the building and talking to people is something that's done enough or long enough. I think you'll have a good idea when you have enough, and experience will help teach you if you were right or wrong. But really make sure you spend a lot of time there because that's the foundation. You can't run before you learn how to walk, and so take the time learning how to walk. Make sure you have legs. Make sure the idea is valuable, and then you'll have a great foundation for going forward. And then everything will be a lot easier because you're not trying to run ads, test messaging, make sure that the product is something people want at the same time. You could start like that. Lots of startups have where they have a really good idea. They decide to put up an ad just to see if people click. But I think that's a little bit leaving it up to chance. I think if you have a better solid foundation, you'll build a real business. Wow.
So what are some of the strategies, in this step 2, which, people should be looking at?
So to get traction and it's just critical to run lots and lots of experiments. I think again, if you are familiar with the niche or you've spent lots of time in the industry, you'll already have an understanding of what's missing, what people need. If you look at Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin really had an understanding. They were PhD doctorates in computer science. They really understood what was going on at the time. So they knew, that, hey, all of a sudden I can't find files in this huge network that we're building. Let's create a search engine. So they already understood that, right out of the gate. And then they were not only connected within the industry, but they also had years of understanding. They understood the limitations, they understood the problems, and so that's really critical. So if you really understand it, then going forward and developing some growth should be fairly easy. You want bootstrapping, or you want to pull in some investments. But the important thing is, I think, to kind of make sales and show that more and more people are coming back to your site, to your product, to your service, to your app, day in and day out. And that will kind of demonstrate. And how you get that, again, really varies. You're going to have to put in a lot of hard work. Don't just think it's all online, because you're still going to have to do some offline stuff in terms of, trying to go to meetups to promote your stuff, trying to talk to different people. But you just need to kind of keep pushing the needle, do things that push the needle. If that's a PR stunt, if it's getting pressed, if it's, you got to test all these different channels to see which one's going to convert the best and keep pushing the needle forward. And it's a lot easier to do that all online. There's so many virtual things. You can post to different subreddits. You could go on Hacker News, put some stuff there. Again, you can try press. You can try, stunt. You can try to create a video that hopefully goes viral. So there's lots of different channels that you can test once you have a solid foundation and you're ready for more growth. But again, don't ignore the people who are your community. Ask them to share. Ask them what they think.
Right.
Then viral loops is if one person brings more than one, you're viral. Quote unquote. So don't ignore the people you already have there just to try and attract new ones, because if they don't feel like they're part of anything when they finally get to your site or they finally buy your product, if you forget about them, you've gotten the money, you're about to run. If you've forgotten about them, they won't keep coming back and they won't tell other people about it. What you need is to provide something that's so awesome that they can't help but talking about it.
Wow. How, in terms of, what you guys tried, some of the channels, what are your favorites, or what was the most effective for you?
Our most effective was email marketing, and still is email marketing. So we built up enough trust with the readers, the people who follow us, that when they give us their email address, they know that they're going to get cool stuff. We've used different strategies at different times through the email marketing, but that's definitely the highest converting channel, other than press when we try to get featured or talk about a new feature or talk about, some success stories, whether that's on the supply side or the demand side. Those are the best conversion channels.
Right. Do you use social media a lot to drive new traffic?
So the thing with social media is that it can be very useful, but it can also be very, very time consuming and a little bit harder to track. I mean, there's different ways. We do use it a little bit, especially on blog content marketing side. Try to create some really cool content that kind of leads into some of the things that some of the other things that we do with some other partners, so that people feel really engaged and keep coming back to the blog. I think probably one of the best people to do content marketing is definitely Buffer. Their blog is just amazing. And so, if you talk to Leo about creating some really valuable content, they have lots of insight, or you could just, see what they do. It's not always directly associated to their product, but it's always around the main theme that their product addresses, which is kind of like productivity, social engagement, and just being a better person. And so all their stuff is really cool. And they have over 100,000 readers or something crazy like that, on any given month, which is super awesome.
Right. So, creating content is one thing, but could you give a bit of advice on doing, the outreach and actually getting people to read your content? So, would you recommend doing, blogger outreach, or how do you go about the PR part of it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So you definitely should be doing outreach. I mean, this is part of what these 1,000 true fans are. Nobody says that the 1,000 true fans have to be somebody who's only consuming the product. They could also be, bloggers, influencers, people who like what you're doing. It's even better if they're those kind of people, or journalists. And again, I think in our day and age, it's starting to become more obvious through social media that you can actually outreach to specific individuals who have specific interests. And so when you're doing blogger outreach or PR, don't just write to tip@mywebsite.com. Really find an individual who is very interested in what you're doing, so don't find somebody who writes about toasters if you're selling an app. Don't find somebody who writes about hardware computer hacking if you're creating a soap product. Try to align your product with somebody who's very interested in the same space, and then reach out to them directly. And if you can't find their email address, tweet them, say, hey, listen, I'd like to do this, or try to figure out who in their network might know them. Send them a present ahead of time. It may or may not be a story. I'm not saying that it will. I'm just saying try to be cool. Try to do something different. These people see so many things on a daily basis that they just kind of become desensitized and they're just drowned in work, that you kind of have to be unique and do something cool. But if your product and vision are aligns with who this person is fundamentally and what their interests are, then you're already a step ahead over somebody who hasn't done their research and just says, hey, this is all about me. Put my stuff up. Put my stuff up. Put my stuff up. And who doesn't think what's in it for you. It's another person, they want to get something out of it. Journalists are trying to build their own career, and so they want to cover cool and up and coming things. They're not there to hurt you or hinder you. They want to help you, but you have to help them help themselves.
Right. So again, it's come back to just being authentic, human, and just being yourself, I guess, as well. And trying.
All basic stuff.
You talk a lot about, the second part is a lot about running experiments, and there's so many different channels. Do you have any, framework you follow in terms of running the experiments? Is there, any steps, or, do you have you put hypothesis first and then you try to test it, or, if you could talk a little bit more about it.
Absolutely, yeah. You shouldn't just run a test to run a test. You should always have a hypothesis behind it. And the hypothesis should be based on something that isn't currently happening, something that somebody has told you should be happening and again isn't, or something that you want to try just to test, but have a solid understanding of where it should be heading. And so again, if you really have a good foundation with your community, they will probably tell you what you should be testing, what's not working, and don't fight what the feedback that people get. I think a lot of the times founders are so set on a vision and, this has to be the way it is, that they end up alienating their audience because they aren't paying attention to what they need. If everybody is writing in saying, hey, we need a specific feature, then you better build a feature. Whether it fits your plan or not, they are helping shape the product, and so you should pay attention to them. And that will help you continue to grow, because chances are, if a whole bunch of people are writing to you, taking the time out of their day to write to you, to request a feature, chances are other people also want the same feature. But in terms of a framework, I mean, it really depends what you're using. I mean, I use all kinds of different tools, but if you have just the LaunchRock page for a simple landing page or a simple, WordPress website, there's lots of really cool tools out there to help you test. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. There's unbounce.com to help you set up a different types of landing pages and really test what the content at different times that different people see, some of the different messages. It's a great tool. That one's paid. There's Google websites, tools. And so there again, and there's lots of different A/B things that Google will provide you for free that you can test. And there's lots of different information online on how to use these things. Things like Kissmetrics can track lots of different stats about what's converting, what isn't. If you're sending out email, most email clients will also have an A/B test feature. I use Mailchimp a lot. I think they have lots of integrations. They also do A/B tests. And so you can really track and visualize, what message is working. But don't try to do it all at once. Try to do, if you make a change to your website, leave it up for at least 2 weeks just to really understand what's going on. And don't start making tests right out of the gate. The first time you put up a splash page or website, make sure you have some kind of analytics system turned on. Google Analytics is free. There's a whole bunch of other open source ones. There's paid ones. They all do pretty much the same thing. Some of them just make it a little bit easier, a little bit more visually appealing. But leave it up for the first time for at least a month, and then start playing around with some of the stats. That way you have a baseline of what's going on. The really important thing when you're trying to run experiments and tests is not do too much at once, because then you might not really understand what actually contributes to the change. So if you're changing the picture, the headlines, and all of a sudden your traffic goes up, well then, okay, was it the picture that was wrong or was it the headline that was wrong? Okay, I don't know. So make sure you test things slowly, but fast enough that you're actually making changes. So A/B tests for pictures are great because then, it'll change the scale of who's coming in and who's going out. In terms of, what's being exposed to certain people. But just test things slowly. Again, the best way, also is if you can go offline, have, a working local copy and ask somebody to go through it and see how they react. User testing is very critical. There's, lots of sites where you can do it online, but you can also do it offline. The trick when you're doing it offline is to really make sure that you have the right people, and kind of the right environment to do that. Otherwise, they may or may not, try to lead you in the answers they give in order to kind of provide you with what they think you want. But usertesting.com, another great site for user testing. So again, if you're running multiple variations or you want to understand if your messaging is being absorbed properly, that works. Amazon Mechanical Turk for a couple quick, questions or surveys or anything like that. You pay cents on the answer. On Twitter, just shoot out to a Twitter list. Be like, hey, you guys are super engaged users. I've followed you on Twitter. As long as that's not weird. Again, depending on the industry, start stalking people online. But feel free to send out an email or a Twitter message to some of your closer followers, and say, hey, listen, guys, you guys helped us do so much so far. We really appreciate it. We'll give you something XYZ at the end, but check this out. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Buy Starbucks for the entire world, but just be cool. Most of the time, people will take you up on the offer for free, and they're just really happy that you asked them for their insight and kind of value their opinion. Again, basic human stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just a few last questions.
Sure.
So your role at the Acelio and Startup Place is basically you're responsible for growth. How does your day look like, and how do you make it happen, on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to keep my days changing consistently. I do that on purpose. I try to make it vary on purpose. You don't want to get comfortable, I think. You don't want to get in a rut. Otherwise, then you start thinking the same way all the time. I think the most important thing is to keep talking to your audience and keep understanding them, because the needs are going to change. The way that you evolve is going to change. I'm not saying, when I said earlier, take their feedback, you don't always have to do everything that they tell you. Otherwise, you're going to be all over a million different places. But if there are general trends that people are talking about, do that. So with Acelio specifically, we're trying to build premium content, smart guides, and Acelio's target is just on anything that could make your life remotely better. So I was, just saying that you should make fans. You should build fans of your product, when you reach out to people and let them know what you're working on, you know, what the vision, what the benefits for them are. Again, always make that really clear. What are they going to get out of it? But then also become fans of their work. You know, everyone that I think I reach out to, I try to become a fan of what they're doing. I try to help them, you know, become a connector of people in different things. And you'll become, you know, you'll stay focused on the right reason if you are always talking to people who are ridiculously passionate about what they're doing and about what you're doing. And those are really what true fans are. And so, you know, my will vary. Sometimes I'll be sending lots of emails. Sometimes I'll be on the phone helping people do a lot of things. Sometimes I'll be out at events talking about things. Other times I'll, you know, be talking with people on Skype, giving interviews. So I think, you know, your days should vary. You should be trying out different things. But you should always be, you know, true about who you are, true about the product, and really keep the community in mind. I think that's critical. As long as you're always working to, try to better the value that you're providing to somebody, they'll be happy with what you're doing.
That's awesome. And just last question,
Sure.
What would be, you know, what would be one thing do you think our readers can, you know, do to basically start growth, like, you know, start building, you know, traction? What's the one thing you would say that they can do now straight away after this interview?
Straight away, go talk to more people.
Awesome.
If you think you've already talked to enough people, go talk to more people. I don't think you can ever meet enough people and get their insights into what you're doing and what they're doing. The more there's also a benefit behind that, because the more other people that you share your idea with, your passion, your product, the more they will connect you to other people who have the same passions and projects. And then maybe there's opportunity to kind of collaborate or change direction a little bit. I don't want to use the word pivot because, you know, you're probably focused on your idea and it's all ideas are worthwhile for sure. But as you start to meet more people, again, you'll kind of build a personal following. More people will know about who you are as an individual, what your passions are, what your ideas are, what you're working on. And then there will be more receptive to your product, your service, your app, whatever, and test it out. And then they're also going to tell more people about it. You know, if you're a rock star, people will talk about you. So just do that.
That's awesome. That's been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much, Franco, for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.